All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining today. It's awesome to see such a great turnout. I'm Gregory. I'm a compliance solution consultant here at Scytale. Maybe just a quick background on myself. First, actually started out in a career in cancer research up until about 3 or 4 years ago, after learning that cancer was a bit harder to cure than I thought it would be. After a few other interests as well, it led me to Scytale. I've spent the last 16 months or so speaking to CEOs and CTOs of tech startups around the information security challenges that they're facing, around compliance frameworks like ISO 27001, and spent a lot of time in the Australian markets and understanding the complexities around these frameworks within that space, so especially over this year. I think we're ready to get started. So, a prospect has just asked you about ISO 27001. Now what? Today, we're going to spend about 30 minutes looking at the ISO 27001 framework, what it is, what it looks like, how the process can be done, and a quick walkthrough on Scytale's automation platform, which can be used to achieve this framework. Of course, I welcome any questions at any points. If you do have any queries or anything in mind, please do pop it below in the questions tab, and we'll definitely make time to go through all of those towards the end as well. The call's also being recorded, so you will be getting a copy of this recording after the presentation as well, if you'd like to review anything again from that side. All right. So every company needs security compliance. It's not an if, it's a when. And there's a few angles where this is sort of causing a drive towards this. Obviously, the primary one being to boost sales and growth. You know, we're seeing more and more that information security compliance, like ISO 27001, is becoming more of a commercial issue than an actual security issue. Whether you're looking to go into a market, whether you're looking to go offshore into other markets or going up markets, you'll often find at some point that you are going to get requested for a certification like ISO before any engagement can be done. And so this is a huge driver to go ahead and achieve the certification. But there's a lot of other benefits of actually going through a process like this as well. Obviously, a reduction in the security risks after bolstering and improving your security posture, and complying with regulations around legal and security requirements as well. But compliance, it can be a huge pain. It's extremely time consuming. There's a ton of manual processes, documents, templates that you need to spend time developing, knowing that they're correct, and then going through audit processes and all these kind of things that you don't really want to spend your time doing, right? It's also a super complicated process. You know, if you're a tech startup, or a fast moving startup, you're not really in a position where you've got compliance officers or internal resources to kind of drive and take on this compliance, and you're ending up with a framework that, if you haven't done it before, just looks completely daunting and super complicated, right? You're also facing extremely tight deadlines a lot of the time, whether it's from commercial pressures that you've got a client who's looking to come on board, but they want to see a certification, and you haven't really got the time to go and figure this all out and what to do to take it on. Another huge pain of this is the costs involved. You know, delays in your compliance journey can result in lost deals. The internal costs of hours that you can be spending on compliance processes are just not leaning towards a solution or a problem that you really want to tackle, right? And it really is a burden on a lot of companies. And we're seeing this from not just the time that you're having to spend on this to actually get it done, but the process of doing it manually presents a huge ton of consequences on that as well. So what is ISO 27001 in any case? Let's have a look at the framework on a quick sort of zoomed out perspective. The ISO 27001 is an information security standard created by the International Organization of Standardization based out in Switzerland. And they're developing frameworks for a whole bunch of different topics, from quality management, environmental management, with information security obviously being the 27001 framework. The framework provides businesses with guidelines to establish and implement and manage an information security management system, or an ISMS, that you will then be certified on. It addresses sort of things from three different angles, from people, processes, as well as technology. And this can be seen from three different dimensions, or what we call the triad of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But what does this look like for you at the end of the day? The framework is basically going to force you to draft up a whole bunch of different policies. We can look at an example of a policy like an access control policy that you have to draft and have in place and have enforced, which is the third part of this is super important. You know, it's all very well having policies in place, but you need to show that you are actually following these policies and adhering them. So what happens is a policy is then translated into what we call a control. Now let's use an example. We can look at the policy like an access control policy. We may then derive a control from access control, like having multi-factor authentication to access your cloud. Now, with ISO 27001, you're going to end up with about over 90 different controls, such as that example, that you need to implement and configure into your organization. You then need to collect evidence to actually prove that you have these controls in place for the auditor. So that evidence can be screenshots of data sets or logs or code that you then take over to an auditor for him to review and conduct the audit, and then provide you with your certification, hopefully. The certification is going to be valid for 3 years, so it works on a 3-year cycle. But you do need to undergo what we call surveillance audits in year 2 and year 3. So very much a continuous process with a lot of documents involved around that. So that's a little bit about the ISO 27000 framework and what it looks like. Of course, we'll go into some more detail around it and some examples when we're going through the walkthrough of Scytale solution to take this on. So what is Scytale and who are we? To give you a quick overview, Scytale is a compliance company, and what we do is we help tech companies achieve compliance as fast as possible, but most importantly, as easy as possible. And the way that we're doing this is we're providing what we call our complete security compliance hub. And there's a few core elements or pillars to the service. So on one side, we've got our technology platform. The platform is going to be used to manage the entire ISO process from start to finish with a full task management system. It's going to be automating a huge ton of the process, but also providing all the tools you need to get this done, which is going to allow a huge reduction in the time that you're spending on going through the process, but also a reduction in the costs that you would typically have to spend on other tools like risk management tools, security awareness training tools, all now being condensed into Scytale's platform. What we've done as well is we've taken the platform and we've paired it with a full professional consulting service. So we've got a team of ex-ISO 27001 auditors who've now come onto the other side to really sort of handhold you throughout the whole approach. So right from the beginning, you'll be having weekly meetings with your advisors who are there to provide all the expertise, the advisory, but also the project management elements of this as well. And the reason we do this is, you know, we understand that in these fast-moving positions, you don't really have the internal resources, be that time or even knowledge, to take this on yourself. And that's exactly why we're providing this human service to come in and drive this forward for you. So let's have a look into all of this in a bit more detail. Our security compliance platform is going to be used as a complete end-to-end solution to drive forward your certification and provide all the necessary steps and guidance. We're going to be integrating with your tech stack to allow automatic compliance monitoring, evidence collection, and document generation. We're going to provide all the tools that you need, such as a simplified risk assessment process, your vendor management, user access review, security awareness training, all the kind of steps that you're going to need to take for the ISO framework. I'm not going to go into too much depth on the platform now because I will be sharing it soon and give you a quick walkthrough on that process in a bit more context. But let's jump into the compliance management side of our solution. So I spoke a bit about this earlier, where we've got our team of professional consultants who are going to come in and really proactively drive this process forward for you. There's a lot of text on the screen here, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to highlight a few key points of what that consultant's going to look like. So right from the beginning, we're going to go ahead and define your scope for the framework. What does that mean? You know, an ISO certificate for a tech startup versus an ISO certificate for a public bank is a completely different scope. Not everything is going to be exactly the same. So we need to help you figure out what's actually relevant based on your infrastructure, the kind of data that you process, and the organizational setup that you have already. And we're then going to define that scope for you. We're going to then look at all of your existing policies obviously being a huge role in the ISO framework. If you don't have policies in place at all, or if they're not looking too good, that's okay, because we're here to work on them with you. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to be providing full weekly meetings from start to finish, where we're there with you, working with you on the platform, guiding you on what to do, how to do, and how to do it, and then reviewing that it has been done correctly. So, full sort of hand-holding approach throughout the whole process. Just before the audit, we're going to go ahead and provide a full internal audit. It's about an 8 to 10 hour process to make sure you're 100% good to go with the certification. Because, yeah, the last thing you want to do is obviously go through all the process, spend all the time, and then actually fail the certification, right? The audit process is also going to be facilitated by us. So we're able to work with your right auditors that you're looking for, bring them into the platform, facilitate the audits, and even represent your company on your behalf, dealing with the evidence documents, any questions that might come up, and really taking care of that for you. We're then obviously going to provide ongoing support after the framework's been completed. Startups are moving fast, and infrastructure changes, human resources change, and we want to ensure that you are actually remaining compliant. So yeah, that's a little bit about the compliance management side of our solution from the professional services. Again, particularly useful in the case that you don't have the internal resources to kind of take this on or drive it yourself. So what is the process going to look like, or how does it work? To give you a quick bottom line on the timeline here, or a quick spoiler alert, so you don't have to add up all these weeks in your head, you're typically looking at about a 2.5 to 4 month process to go from ground zero to getting that ISO certificate in your hands. We're first going to onboard and get everyone on the platform from your side. We're going to integrate with your systems, and then we're going to provide a full gap analysis to understand where you are and where you need to be, and then build you that plan to get you there. You're then going to spend probably the next 2 to 8 weeks actually implementing all the controls I spoke about a bit earlier, making sure all the right policies are in place and getting that evidence done and in time, and then proceeding with the audit period until you're achieving your certification as your immediate end goal. In terms of effort throughout the whole process, what is this going to look like from your team? You can expect for the whole ISO process from start to finish about 35 to 40 hours of effort on your side. So typically translates to about 2 to 4 hours a week. I know that might sound quite low, but it's exactly the idea of our solution here. Startups are moving fast. You're focusing on products, going to market development, and you don't really want to disrupt your day-to-day and go and focus on compliance. And that's exactly how we've built the system, so that you can sort of continue your day-to-day as much as possible while getting this done in the background. So that's a little bit about the process, the timeline, and what I'd love to do now is jump straight into the platform and show you where this is all going to be taking place. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I think you should all be able to see the platform. All right, so this is Scytale's platform, and the logic of the platform is very clear, and that is to achieve and maintain your information security compliance. So everything on the platform is kind of geared towards that in some way or another. When you open up the platform, you're first going to get taken off to this dashboard. Gives you a super high level overview of where your project is sitting. So, from any outstanding tasks for your team, the status of your policies, where they're sitting, the actual monitoring of the controls through the integrations, and of course, the progress of your audit readiness as well. Now, on the left-hand side here, we can see all these modules related to compliance. We're going to kick things off with integrations. So the first step when you get onto the platform is for us to integrate with your tech stack as much as possible. When I'm talking about tech stack, we're looking at mostly tools like, for example, your cloud provider, like AWS, GCP, or Azure, your code source management tools like GitHub, MongoDB, Bitbucket, etc., your workspaces, your endpoint management tools, CRMs, ticketing tools, communication tools, etc. And through these integrations, these very narrow read-only access integrations, we're able to do two important things here. The first is that we're going to be able to automatically and in real time monitor your ISO 27001 compliance. So we can see if things are in place. If they're not in place, we're going to mark them as flagged and then tell you how to fix them. But then on top of that, we're going to be automatically collecting the evidence that you need for that certification and audit as well. And that all takes place on the left-hand side here in the monitoring module. So I'm going to head on over to monitoring, and simplicity is very much led the way for us here. So what you're going to see in front of you is all of the controls that I spoke about a bit earlier. they're going to be grouped by subjects that are easy to manage or delegate within your team. At the top, you can filter them out by owner. You can obviously go into different frameworks. I'm going to pick ISO, of course, for this context. Now, if we expand on a subject, let's just choose the top one as an example, access control. We're going to see all of the controls that you need to have implemented to be ISO compliant. We're going to see who in your team is responsible for that control. But I guess the most interesting or relevant part of this module is the status, right? So, of course, if everything is healthy, that means that it's in line with ISO, fantastic, nothing needs to be done, great. But let's have a look at the workflow if we've picked up that something is flagged, it's not ISO compliant. So I'm going to go into an example. We can pick, for example, the configuration of MFA for identity providers. We saw that this control was flagged. And if we click on it, we'll see a few important pieces of information. But I just want to point your attention to the automatically collected data at the bottom over here. So this is basically a summary of what we can see through the integration. In this case, it's for MFA. So we've got these usernames in your company. Do they have MFA enabled? No. So we've gone ahead and flagged that control. You're then also going to see on the top right-hand side here, the IPE documents. Now, this is a PDF document, which is the evidence documents that you will need for the actual audit. I'll download that briefly just to show you guys a quick example of what evidence looks like for an audit. Let me just go ahead and share this one. Cool. So what we can see in this case is the name of the control, the service it was pulled from, the timestamp, and then the actual test result here. Now, with ISO 27001, you've got over 90 different controls. So you can imagine to produce this kind of evidence document for all of these controls, know that they're correct and doing it manually is a huge ton of work that the platform is saving by collecting this automatically every day. Now, going back to the platform, we saw that this control was flagged. It's obviously not in line with ISO compliance, which is great to know, but you want to then get an action item on how to fix that, or what are you going to do to go ahead and make that compliant? So as soon as we flag an issue, we immediately going to go ahead and create a task to tell you what to do and how to fix it. I click on the task, it takes us to the to-do module, super simple way to manage tasks. And yeah, when you click on a task, you're basically going to get a very simple step-by-step instructions guiding you through on what to do and how to make that ISO compliant. Because we are monitoring this in real time, as soon as we see that you have fixed the control, the ticket's going to be closed and the control is going to be marked as healthy. So it's a very simple but powerful workflow to be able to plug into your systems, monitor your ISO compliance, see what's missing, where things are missing. We're going to flag them, tell you how to fix them, and then automatically collect all that evidence as well. Now, there's a few other elements of the ISO process which are super important. Obviously, all of these controls that we've been looking at and what I've been talking about, they're coming from your policies. So there's a lot of policies that you need to draft and have in place, which we're going to go ahead and manage from our policy hub on the left-hand side here. Now, no one really wants to go ahead and work with lawyers to draft policies or set them up or spend time with all the legal work. So what we're going to do is provide you with all of the off-the-shelf templates that you need for the ISO framework. So I'll go into the top here and filter into ISO. And here we can see all the policies that we're going to need. We can go into a policy like, for example, incident management. And from here, we're just going to edit whatever is highlighted in yellow, maybe specific to your company or a specific role responsible for something. Once you've made the changes, your consultants will review them. If they're happy, you're happy, you can go ahead and sign off the policies on a platform. So yes, super simple way to set up and manage your policies. And again, the consultants are here to make sure that they are enforced according to the framework of ISO 27001. For the ISO framework, you also need to conduct a risk assessment from an organizational perspective. So you need to build a registry of all the risks that you can identify. You need to monitor them. You need to build mitigation plans. And yeah, instead of spending time going ahead and trying to find out what risks you have, build up a long Excel sheet, there's a really easy way to do it on the platform. We're going to spend probably 30 minutes to an hour answering some yes or no questions around these 4 topics. And then based on that, it develops a results table of all the risks that we can identify. We assign a risk score based on the impact and the likelihood according to the ISO criteria. obviously owners in your team responsible for that, and mitigation plans to work on. You can delete risks if you find they're not relevant. You can, of course, add your own risks, and you can export your risk reports as well. And on that note, everything on the platform is exportable. So you're not entirely stuck in here. Your policies, your evidence documents, your reports, you can always take in and out sort of at your own wish. A couple of other important parts of the ISO process, sort of related to the risk assessment, is that you need to do an assessment on your own vendors. So you need to understand who your vendors are, the kind of data they process, the impacts of that, and the potential risks associated with that. And this you're going to be able to consolidate and perform on Scytale's vendor management platform. You're also going to be able to consolidate any relevant compliance documents from their side, like privacy policies, DPAs, or their certifications, to all manage from this perspective as well. Something else I think you guys might find pretty interesting is our user access reviews. So this is something you need to do on a quarterly basis for the ISO framework, where you basically need to ensure that the systems that you have in your tech stack and the usernames who are granted to get access to that, are they actually the employees that you've given that access to? So we're going to be able to automate that on the platform as well. I won't go into too much depth on that for the sake of time. But something I wanted to touch on as well is our training. Now, for the 27001 framework, you need to have third-party security awareness training for all of your staff. You need to do SDLC training for your developers as well. So, of course, we're going to provide you with all of the training modules on the platform. Look, it's not a master's degree in cybersecurity. It's a super simple training course, but it's kind of the idea of the platform, is to give you, everything you need to get this done in the most simple and most efficient way possible. The training as well as policies can all be tracked from our people management module. Over here, we're going to be able to pull in a list of your employees, understanding their job titles, their current status, and track whether they've completed that training or policies or not, which is often quite a mission to track. Once everything is in place, you've got everything healthy, you've gone through all the processes, your risk assessment, the training. The last step in this immediate process is the actual certification or the audit itself. And this is going to take place on the platform as well. So the first thing that we're going to do is provide a full internal audit to make sure that 100% good to go before facing that external auditor. When you're ready for the external auditor, it's not a case of back and forth emails with all your documents or an auditor coming into the office and disrupting your day. The auditor is simply going to log into the platform. He'll get a specific role-based access to the audit module, and he's only going to see the framework that he's doing an audit for, so in this case, ISO. And from here, he's able to go through all of the controls, the policies that have been set up within your scope. He can go into a certain policy or a control. He'll be able to download the relevant evidence or documents that are linked to that, and then approve it on the platform as well. So it's a very simple way to manage the audit process and everything before that. And on that note, I'm happy to share that we do have a 100% success rates with ISO certifications with all of our clients on the first time. So that's kind of our solution in a very high level overview, running through what the process would look like. It's really going to be able to not just save time in the process of the monitoring, the automatic evidence collection, but keep you on the right track in the way that we've designed this in a step-by-step process. From an audit perspective, that's actually something that we're covering from our side as well through our audit network. So we'll be able to facilitate the whole entire audit process. We'll bring the auditors in onto the platform and get that done for you. Obviously something we always like to mention, or some really exciting news recently, is that Scytale was announced that we are the 2024 G2 leaders in governance, risk, and compliance, which I think is a great testament to the kind of service that we are providing to these fast-growing companies. So are you guys compliant yet? You can go ahead and book a meeting at the top of the tab here, in the blue tab. If you're looking to explore this a little bit further, you can always go ahead and scan the QR code in front of us as well. But I'll be happy to take on any questions that you might have around the process, around ISO or Scytale, which we can dive into. Cool. I see we have quite a few questions here. Let's just load these up. Okay, so first question, this was submitted a bit earlier. Are there other tools like an intrusion detection system, for example, to achieve ISO 27001 certification? I think this question is coming from a broader question of, is getting ISO compliant, is it going to require you to purchase a whole bunch of different tools and software to actually have these things in place to get certified? And the short answer to that is no, absolutely not. The framework is not trying to force you into a box to go ahead and have this enterprise grade security structure with all these modern tools and softwares. ISO is a very forgiving framework, and there's a lot of flexibility around certain controls. And if you're doing things a certain way, you can describe that and mark it as an area of improvement and say, we don't have an intrusion detection system, but we plan on getting it, in the next year or so. And you'll be able to explain it from that perspective. So no, you're not being forced to go ahead and buy a whole bunch of tools to get compliance. And another question from Jessica. So is there a list of all your integrations, and what if some of my applications are not integrated with Scytale? This is a great question. So the first half of your question, yes, we do have a list. I think you can go into scytale.ai/integrations, and you'll be able to see a list of all our currently existing integrations. But what if some of your applications are not integrated with Scytale? So the first thing we're going to do here is have a look at that tool and try and understand if it's actually relevant for the ISO scope. We don't need to integrate with every tool that you've got within your system, only the ones that are relevant within the scope. But let's say now that it is relevant and we don't have an integration. The next step that we're going to do is potentially add this integration to our list of integrations. We're currently adding about 2 to 3 every month. And if it's an important one that will save you a lot of time, we're going to be able to then fast track that and get it going for you. If it's something that is not very possible for us to fast track or get in place, what I do want to mention is that a framework like ISO or any of these compliance frameworks can never be 100% automated. There will always be some manual processes that are just not technological. So the platform is very equipped to be able to set up and track manual sort of workflows to some of these controls. And this is where your consultant's going to come in and guide you through on how the control should be implemented, what the evidence should look like to collect, that you will then upload onto the platform. Cool. Does using Scytale service provide a guarantee that you'll get certified? Good question. So while on our paperwork we're not providing a 100% guarantee that you will get certified within the state, I think a great point to raise again is that we do have a 100% success rate with ISO certifications with all of our clients who have gone ahead and done this. It's an unacceptable result to not get certified. If you're signing with us, this is what we do, and we will put in the right effort and resources to ensure that you are getting this done and in with the time frame that you're hoping to get this achieved with. Cool. I think we have a few more questions. Do you support other frameworks? Yeah. So a lot of these frameworks, the processes are very similar. So you're starting out with your policies, you're setting up controls, you need to implement them, collect evidence, and then go for an audit. And Scytale's platform is able to support not just ISO 27001 and its extensions, but other security frameworks like SOC 2, as well as other privacy frameworks like GDPR, the POPI Act, or HIPAA, with over 15 other frameworks that you're able to centrally manage from our platform. Cool. Couple other questions. Do you continue to use the software after you get certified? Also a really good question. So, obviously the first or the most immediate goal for you as an organization looking to get certified is to actually achieve that certification. But what happens after that? As you're a fast-growing startup, infrastructure changes, human resources changing, and you want to ensure that you're able to actually maintain and stay in line with your compliance framework that you've worked so hard to achieve. So the platform is going to provide continuous monitoring. If things do change, you're going to get flagged, things are going to be out of line, to be able to maintain that compliance efforts. Another reason that you're going to continue to use this platform, a super important one, is you don't want to spend all this time and efforts and heavy lifting to go ahead and get the framework and then forget about it for a year. And then next year, when it's time for another audit, you've got to stop what you're doing, put all this effort in and make sure you're ready. Rather just keep things in line and maintain that information security compliance standard to that 100% compliance from a continuous basis. Cool. I think we've got one more question I see from my side. Do you have to have a penetration test to achieve certification? The short answer on this is no. It's not a strict requirement that you do need to have a pen test. But if you do have a web application or a mobile application, it is the easiest way to answer to a few of the controls around the ISO framework. The ISO framework wants to make sure that you are managing, addressing, and identifying vulnerabilities within your technological systems. And the easiest way to do this is a penetration test. So no, you don't have to, but I would say 90% plus of tech companies that are doing ISO frameworks are getting penetration tests as part of their steps towards certification. Cool. I think, yeah, that's most of the questions I've seen so far. If anyone's got any other questions or follow-up questions to the questions I asked or answered, there's always often, a whole bunch of questions pop up after you've answered a few. So yeah, I'll wait just a couple minutes to see if you guys have any other questions. All right. I think that's everything for today. Guys, I appreciate your time to meet with us today. I hope you found the call useful, at least in some angle, to learn either about the framework or to learn a little bit about Scytale's approach. Again, if you'd like to continue the chat or put this in a bit more context of your organization or your company, we'd be happy to sit and have a short call with you to find out a bit more about that. You can go ahead and book a time on the slot on the screen here. But otherwise, that's all for today. Thank you again for the time, and I hope to chat with you all soon.